The sinking of the Titanic in 1912, with the loss of more than 1,500 lives, caused shock and outrage. Wasn't the Titanic supposed to be unsinkable? Why had its lifeboats not been able to save the passengers and crew? The Titanic had been the pride of the nation, the largest ocean liner in the world, and on its maiden voyage, the captain had more than 40 years' experience. So what has this to do with the grammar book? Patience, and all will be revealed. The ship had been constructed by the prestigious Belfast firm of Harland and Wolff, founded in 1861 by Edward James Harland, 1831 to 1895, and Gustav Wilhelm Wolff, 1834 to 1913. This photo shows the Titanic and its sister ship, the Olympic, under construction. And this photo shows the Titanic completed. Edward was born in Scarborough in the North Riding of Yorkshire and was educated at Edinburgh Academy. In 1846, aged 15, he took an apprenticeship at the engineering works of Robert Stephenson and Company, Newcastle upon Tyne. His father was Dr. William Harland, who became Mayor of Scarborough 3 times. We now come to the grammar book. In about 2012, my wife Rosalind and I were in Paris, and as usual on our trips, we spent a Saturday morning searching the Georges Brassens old book market. The market was situated in one of the old buildings of the disused Vaugirard Abattoir in Rue Broncion. We looked for books written by, or referring to, my great-grandfather Alexandre Le Béal. This is from the frontispiece of his Atlas of France. This is the frontispiece of one of his textbooks. We were also on the lookout for anything else of interest. I came across a small leather-bound book in English. It was published in 1792, and like all the books in the particular stall, was only €1. What caught my eye was a number of inscriptions by William Harland. For example, I tried unsuccessfully to remember the first name of the Harland of Harland and Wolff, but I then realised that anyway the date was wrong. However, it looked quite interesting, and I parted with my €1. Back in England, I uncovered that the father of Edward Harland of Harland and Wolff was named William. Could it have belonged to him? I examined the book carefully. Here are some of the inscriptions. I reasoned that this was the sort of thing a 13-year-old or thereabouts might write. I remembered writing in my Biggles book a similar rhyme. Latin wasn't my strong point. William Harland was born in 1787, so that would have made him 13 in 1800. So far so good. I found out quite a lot about William, and even contacted a descendant. She said that her husband had researched the family history and would have been very interested, but he was very ill. The William Harland papers had been forwarded to a medical charity, the Wellcome Trust. This is a picture of William. Other things interceded, and my research was put aside. However, in 2024 I became confined to the house, and with the intervening Titanic film, the loss of the carbon fibre submersible, and the developments of the internet, I decided to have another look. The grammar book was put together by the Reverend J. Wilson, Vicar of Biddulph and Master of the Free School of Congleton. However, it was based on a grammar by Anne Fisher. Her first books were published anonymously, but although by 1754 she was signing them A. Fisher, she never risked her sales by using her first name Anne and disclosing her gender. This is a painting of Anne. She was the first woman to publish a modern English grammar. Her book, A Practical New Grammar of 1750, was very popular, and by 1800 had reached at least 30 editions. In addition, it was plagiarized and was also used as the basis of later grammars, as in the case of the Reverend William's grammar published in 1792, which I found in Paris. This particular book had been priced at 1 shilling and sixpence, which at the time was a typical agricultural labourer's wage for a day's work. I turned to researching William Harland. The first step was to examine the 1841 census for William Harlands who could have written the grammar book entries. I estimated that the William Harlands would have needed to be aged between 19 and 7 at the date of the 1800 entries, so they have needed to be born between 1781 and 1793. The 1841 census showed 14 of them, but only one looked a possibility. The others were not at all likely to have attended an academy and have been taught Latin or English grammar to the level contained in the book. They had become labourers, farmers, a gardener and a carter. I then looked at the 1851 census. 7 of the William Harlands had already died, leaving only 7. Interestingly, it was the agricultural labourers that had died. William was listed as practising physician and justice of the peace. This is a picture of the family members of the 1851 census. This left me convinced that the book had indeed belonged to William Charles Harland, father of Edward Harland, who had set up the Harland and Wolff builders of the Titanic. William was born in Hartoft, Yorkshire, on the 12th of February 1787. He had initially attended Rosedale Abbey School, but when he was 13 his father moved to Christhorpe, 2 miles north of Filey, and William was sent as a boarder to Robert Addison's Academy at 32 Queen Street, Scarborough. Bigot's Directory of 1829 and Theakston's Guide of 1845 both show the school at the same address, so it was not a fly-by-night establishment, and just the sort of place to have taught classics and formal English grammar. Note that dates of this period can often be out by a year or two. 32 Queen Street is now a listed building, and is reported to have been built at the end of the 18th century, so it would have been a smart new address when William arrived in 1798 or perhaps 1800. This all ties in with the inscriptions, just the sort of thing a 13-year-old might have written in his new book. I looked again at the Latin inscription. The first 2 lines translate as, "This book is mine, as God is my witness," but my Latin wasn't up to the last 2 lines. After the academy, William worked in the chemist's shop of a Mr. Pratt in Scarborough. On the death of the owner, he managed the business for the widow. Later, his father bought him his own shop in Newborough Street. This worked well, and he was able to save sufficient money to study medicine in Edinburgh, eventually qualifying as an MD in 1820. He became a successful Scarborough physician and set up medicinal baths in Vernon Place. As well as becoming a pillar of society and mayor of Scarborough 3 times, he was a prolific inventor and had access to a well-equipped workshop. Among his inventions were a steam carriage and, amazingly, a set of false teeth, carved from the teeth of a hippopotamus. He helped to get the Scarborough Rotunda Museum built, which is still in existence and is well worth a visit. On display are a marble bust of William and a model of his steam carriage, plus the famous false teeth and other oddities. He also designed the library stool, which glides in a circle around the gallery. Given such a background, and the fact that William was a friend of the inventor, engineer and aviator Sir George Cayley, this photo shows a flight-tested replica of a Cayley glider, and also a friend of the Robert Stephenson who built the successful locomotive, the Rocket. It's not surprising that Edward went on to study engineering and set up the firm of Harland and Wolff. So how did William's grammar book end up in a Paris market? I've no idea, but it certainly led me on an interesting journey, and I'm beginning to improve my English.